Hello, I'm Jean Pete, and I welcome you back to our show, Better Living. Better Living is brought to you by the Homestead Hope Foundation and is sponsored by Homestead Hospice, where commitment to education and premier hospice care helps patients and families through life's most important journey. Welcome back to Better Living. This is Jean Pete, and I have another great show in store for you today. Actually, I'm very excited to bring you Deb Baily. She's the owner of Power Woman Magazine, radio and TV shows, and she can be found online at www.powerwomenmag.com. That's POWERWOMENMAG.com. And, you know, I say it every week. I'm blessed to be able to just chat with experts, learn everything I can about all aspects of senior living to help you live a better life. But today is a show that is my second passion, and that is all about empowering women and understanding what our worth is. And with some of the latest news stories about what's going on in India and trying to empower women all throughout the world, I feel very lucky and very blessed to have Deb Baily on the show today. Deb, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining me this morning.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm so excited to be here. It's a treat to be on the other side of the microphone.
I know. Well, and the funny thing is, Deb, on the way in, I said, you know, I'm interviewing a real radio show host. I feel like goodness. I'm just a blessed interviewer, but you really, this is what you do for a living.
It is, and I've been doing it, it'll be 5 years this year, and I absolutely love it, and what you said is true when you get to bring all kinds of different people on your shows and learn about them and share knowledge, and it's what gets you out of bed every day.
It is, and you know, I feel like we get to go to school for free. Well, anyway, we're going to talk today about senior domestic abuse. Very important, very serious topic, and I'm very, very pleased that we get to bring this to our listeners, because Better Living is all about helping people live the best life that they can. And this is an everyday topic for all of the population, but especially sometimes for seniors because they're a little bit more vulnerable. So let's start by talking about your background and how you got involved and passionate and empowered yourself to become the owner of Power Women Magazine, radio, and TV shows.
Oh, my goodness. Well, that could be the whole show there itself, but I'll try and curve it here a little bit. I'm Deb Baily. I'm from Hot Springs, Arkansas, and I started Power Women radio show, actually. Came first. This November will be 5 years. And I had a medical staffing agency that I worked from home, and I lost my business and almost lost my home, and it was devastating, and I didn't know what to do with myself. And my son was about 16 or 17 at the time, and he seen me crying on the edge of the bed one day, and he was going through some medical kidney surgeries and stuff himself and was home a lot with me. And he said, Mom, I don't know why you're crying and so upset. This isn't where God needs you. And at the time, I thought, what in the world do you know? You know, you're 16, 17 years old. And little did I know he was exactly right. 2 months later, I started Power Women Radio. I am a rape and domestic violence survivor, and I've always advocated for women all over the world. I used to do Bible studies with death row inmates that were women all over the world and everything. And so I've always advocated for women, and I got up on Blog Talk Radio, actually, and got started, and was just talking about women and how powerful women need to have a voice and this and that. And lo and behold, a PR agent out in Los Angeles was listening to me, and how he found me, only God knows. And he contacted me after the show and said, you know, I really liked your show, and I'd like to bring my R&B artist on your show. And I'm like, what show are you talking about, dude? I don't know what you're talking about. And he kind of laughed and giggled, and so he sent me this media kit, and I had her on my show, and I had a wonderful time. She was a beautiful lady, beautiful singer, and I really didn't take it very seriously. I thought, well, that's just probably a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Little did I know this man went and spread my name all around the United States, I think, and the world, and it caught on like wildfire. The next thing I knew, I had PR agents from Los Angeles calling me left and right, wanting their celebrities to be on my radio show. And I thought to myself, this was July of 2009, and I thought to myself, oh my gosh, I better really be paying attention to what I'm doing. And so the next person I had on my show was Kim Wayans, and she is now a children's author, and she does Amy Hodgepodge, and she come on my show, and I thought, man, this could really lead to something. And so I started a website, taught myself how to do everything, and made a website, and did that for a couple years until last year, February of last year. I thought, man, it'd really be nice to see who I'm talking to instead of just talking on the phone all the time. So I started Women of Power Next Door TV show. And, excuse me, I would walk up and down the streets here in my town. I live in Hot Springs, and it's people from all over the world come here and take hot baths and get massages and all this other kind of stuff. And so I walked up and down the street with my husband, the cameraman, and would pass out my business cards and say, I have an online TV show. Would you like to be on an episode today? And some would say yes and some would say no. And we did a few of them, about 5, I think, and I put them up on my website and just had a real good time with it. And summer came around. It was too hot to get out, and didn't really pay much attention to it. And back in October, right around my birthday, I come into a little bit of money. Now, my husband's been out of work for 2 years. Keep that in mind. Unemployment's gone. Everything's gone. We're living off of everything that I make. And I come across some software that I could purchase and start videotaping off of Skype. And I thought to myself, man, I really need to pay this bill, but I'd really like to have the software. So I made the decision to go ahead and buy the software, and bought the software, and a girlfriend of mine and I was up there just playing around with it, and we videotaped, and it worked out great, and I put it up on my website. 2 weeks to the day, Dish Network contacted me and picked up my show for 3 years. I fell out of my chair.
And it's funny because we know this, but we don't always live this. When it comes that easy, it's what you're supposed to be doing. And we need to pay attention and listen to that and move forward. I love your story, Deb, because what it says is no matter what the challenge is, see, now when you were going through all your hardship and all of the issues that you had to deal with as a child and a young adult and not understanding why all of this burden was put on you, well, I think we can kind of see where that's led you in life now, and how empowering is that for all of the women that are listening today?
Oh, absolutely. I as a child, my mother, rejected me, and she never wanted me around, and I would run away all the time, and I lived on the streets at the age of 14, and went to college, put myself through college, and that didn't really work out, and my first husband was a drug dealer, and I didn't know it, and my second husband was an alcoholic abuser, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, how worse can it get? But it gets worse,
Wow.
but you live, and just like every experience that you do in life, I always tell the women that come to my conferences and speaking engagements is, it doesn't matter where you start, it's how you finish.
Or when you start, right? Because a lot of our audience, this is a geared towards older adults or their family members. And I want to say, no matter how old we are, no matter what is going on with us physically, emotionally, mentally, whatever, there's always something to pull us up and fulfill us so that we can also contribute back to society. And and so I want these folks to know, listen to Deb's story, listen to all the obstacles that she's had to overcome, and empower yourself to say, how can I be fulfilled, and how can I contribute back to society to help others as well? There is never a time when you can't do that until you're not breathing any longer.
Absolutely. I agree.
Wonderful. So how did you do it? Because you know what? There's a lot of folks out there today, and they're just struggling. This economy, the mentality in the world right now, there's a lot of wrong. So how do you decide, I don't care what's going on outside, I'm going to lift myself up by the bootstraps and make it happen? What do we need to know to do what you did?
I think a lot of it has to be, no matter what situation you're in life, and we all have things happen to us, good, bad, ugly, or otherwise. And I think it's how you look at your situation. I tell the girls that I talk to all the time, excuse me, it's okay to have a period where you're at the pity party. You're crying. You may stay in the bed. You may eat, a gallon of chocolate chip ice cream, whatever. Just don't stay at the party. Make an entrance. Visit just a few minutes and then make an exit. And that's just normal. You have to go through the grieving period of anything in life when something's traumatic. There's steps that you have to go through, but the important thing is that you have to go through those steps. You have to remember in your mind that the way you look at things and the way you react to things in situations and occurrences and events in your life determines how fast you can move forward. And sometimes women get stuck, especially women, because we're the nurturer, we're the healers, or the, super women that take care of everything.
Right.
We tend to think we have to do everything, and we don't. People ask me all the time, how in the world do you get everything done? And truthfully, I really don't know how I get everything done. But I take things day by day. Today, I may have got everything done. Yesterday, I thought I had everything done and forgot a 4 o'clock appointment. So, whoopsie, but I made it up at 5, no big deal. So, I don't put a lot of pressure on myself, because if I started putting pressures on myself, I wouldn't get anything accomplished.
Well, I want to rewind for just a minute, because something you said is so important. It's so true what you said about women just kind of going full speed ahead, handling every ball that's thrown at them, go, do, fix, and then we forget about ourselves. And I love what you said about go to the party, be present at the party, enter, but then you got to exit at a moment. I think sometimes we miss opportunities to really figure out the situation and how we can come out of it better, because we don't enter the party and we don't sit there for a minute to just let it all out and evaluate so we can exit in a more positive fashion.
Absolutely. Yeah,
so important.
That's the trick to it.
So you cried on the side of the bed. You entered the party. And your son came in and he said, "This is when God needs you." Did I get that right?
Yeah, he said, "I don't know why you're so upset. This isn't where God needs you." And I thought, wow, what do you know? And then after things started unfolding, and a year later, and I looked back on that, I thought, he knew exactly what he was talking about. God sent him to my bed that day to sit down and talk to me. And even though I kind of pushed him away and, poo-pooed him away, it was really what I needed to hear.
And, a lot of times on this show, we talk about health and diseases and situations that older adults find themselves faced with. And so, you know what? Go to your pity party. Your body might not be the body that you had before, but you have wisdom and experience of living the life that you lived. And what a wonderful thing if we all had the mindset that you have, Deb, that how can I turn this and make this something that helps other people in society to lift them up. So for the folks that are listening today, I don't care what your age, I don't care what your disease, I don't care if you can't get out of a wheelchair in the morning. You are empowered and you have something to give back.
That's right.
So let's talk about how you give back. Let's tell some stories. Let's motivate some people about how people get empowered.
I think knowledge is empowerment, and I've said this all along. I think the more that we can learn about ourselves as humans and learn about women, that's why I chose Power Women. And I work only with women. I only let women on my shows because we all have a voice. And sometimes as women, we get stomped on or crushed in society, or, our bosses at work don't let us say anything, or whatever the case may be. And I wanted to forward that to where women do have a place to come and vent, because we are intelligent human beings. We are very nurturing. We have something important to say. And if you look in the media and on the news and all these things today, you'll notice a shift in the media where women are starting to finally get a voice. And some of them, unfortunately, are paying the ultimate price of life. for their voice.
Right.
They're getting to say what they need to say, and that, I think, is so empowering and should be empowering to anybody and everybody that's on this planet.
Yeah, and God love that little girl Malayla who fought for her life after being attacked on a bus. I mean, we're so fortunate to be here in the United States, but worldwide we've got a long way to go. But I do think that you're right, and in this country it is changing. Finally, but we still got a way to go.
Right. Absolutely, yes. Yeah, I think that it started back, with the feminist movement back in the 60s, and I think it's starting to finally perk its pretty head. And right now, in this last election, we have more women senators. We have more women that are on the Supreme Court panel. We have more women as CEOs than we ever have before, and that is a huge, huge step forward for women everywhere.
Absolutely. So let's talk about some of the challenges that we do face, though, as women, and how we can help others continue to overcome those obstacles.
I always tell women that come on any of my shows that the first step into helping yourself and helping someone else is talk about it. And I don't mean to keep into the victim mentality, because a lot of times we get stuck in that rut. But if we tell our story like I do, I go around and talk about the abuse and the rape. Does it hurt? Well, of course. It happened to me, and it's very personal. But I have to put that feeling aside so I can bring it to focus for women around the world, because a lot of times women will think, this is only happening to me, and I'm too embarrassed to tell my family, or I'm too embarrassed to share it at church even. So I think that by me speaking out and letting other women come on my shows and talk about whatever issue is important to them, that opens up a door for women to say, oh my gosh, I just heard this story on Deb's radio show, or seen this person, write this article on our website or whatever, and it hit home. And I get thousands of emails and calls and letters and all this every month of women around the world that says, I just listened to one of your radio shows and you inspired me so much. I finally left my abusive relationship after 15 years. And that just brings tears to my eyes.
Yeah.
I helped somebody, and somebody in the Philippines wrote me that letter a few months ago, and I'm thinking to myself, I will probably never meet this person on earth, but I bet I get to meet her upstairs, when the time comes.
Yes.
So it's just astonishing, all the different emails I get, and all the ways that women are being helped, and that is what Power Women is basically about: knowledge to help other women.
I do want to talk a little bit about abuse, and
Right.
Firsthand, because this population that we typically target on this show is older and more vulnerable to abuse, whether it be physical, emotional, or financial. We see a lot of elder abuse going on these days, and they're more susceptible to cyber and telemarketing, fraudulent behavior, and so they're just a very vulnerable population. So for our family members that are out there, and for our seniors that are listening, what are some things that you can tell them to help them protect themselves? And then I want to talk about helping the family members look for some signs and symptoms that might cue them in that something's not going on right with their loved one.
Right. Well, I always tell women that I speak with, because that's usually my basis is women, but this goes for men too as well. But the first thing that I always say is to use common sense. If you're at home by yourself, and my grandmother lived at home almost all her life, and it always worried me because, she, like me, would get on the phone and just talk to anybody. And that was really kind of something that we had to curb, because a lot of times senior citizens are targets for all kinds of scams, unfortunately. And so you have to use a lot of common sense. Don't give away your credit card information or your bank information over the phone. Make sure that if you have somebody that's coming to your house, for example, because you had storm damage or whatever, make sure you're not the only person at home. You know, invite one of your children or a niece or a granddaughter or, you know, a grandson or somebody to make sure that they're there with you when this person comes to your house, because believe it or not, when people have technicians and stuff, even to install cable, you don't know these people.
Right.
And when they come into the house, and I'm not saying that everybody's bad, and I'm not wishing this on anybody, but as you know, we do not know these people. We're letting them into our house, and we're at a very vulnerable state. So if you have somebody there with you, then they have a better chance of surviving anything, or not even having an incident happen. So that's one thing. Safety is very a big part of concern for me. Using your common sense in situations like that.
And especially, like you said, storm damage. When there's a major storm, it's not just your home. It's a big... It has affected a larger population. So folks are going to go hoping to find work. And so you're more susceptible because chances are it's not because you called some kind of a company. Somebody might come knocking on your door to help you. And you can't let them in. You know, you got to do your own research, and you got to find the right folks from a reputable company. And, you know, just thinking about Sandy, there were so many vulnerable people throughout a large region, and that makes them even more vulnerable to folks that are coming for not the right reasons.
Absolutely. And the sad situation about that is that senior citizens don't know that there's a lot of resources out there to help them. Because oftentimes senior citizens are just left to tend to themselves. And that's a sad part about American society, is that most Americans, and I'm not going to say all, they do not have their elder live with them so they can help protect them. And a lot of times, my mother-in-law was one of the stubbornest senior citizens on this earth. She wouldn't live with anybody. So you have that coin, side of the coin as well. But you have to educate and make them powerful by helping guide them and stuff, and know when it's time that they can't drive anymore. Know to tell them it's time, to be a little bit more cautious about your surroundings and everything. Make sure that they have a way to, if they fall and can't get up, and that ad just went through my mind. We make fun of that ad, but that ad saves a lot of lives, that product does. So you have to make sure that when your senior citizen loved ones that are in your family or in your neighborhood, I used to take care of them in my neighborhood that weren't even my family, and check on them. Make sure that the neighbors that are around your senior citizens know that, hey, you know what, this is a senior citizen that lives here, and he or she lives by herself.
And that's so important, because not enough people will reach out to those neighbors. But if you're a family member of a senior that is living alone, it is very important for you to go meet the neighbors, get some phone numbers, because if you can't get through to your loved one, you're going to want someone close to be able to go and check on them. Listen, it always goes faster than I want it to, but we do have to take a quick break, so I want everyone to stay on with us right now. We're talking to Deb Baily, owner of Power Women Magazine, radio and TV shows. We're talking about senior elder abuse, empowering women, and all that you can do in the future to keep yourself safe and also contribute to society. So stay with us. We'll be right back. Hello, I'm Jean Pete, and I welcome you back to our show, Better Living. Better Living is brought to you by the Homestead Hope Foundation and is sponsored by Homestead Hospice, where commitment to education and premier hospice care helps patients and families through life's most important journey. Hi, it's Jeannie Pete here. Thanks for staying with us. We have an important show that we're talking to you about today, and it's all about empowering women and senior elder abuse, how we can make sure to keep our loved ones safe and empower them to have the tools that they need to keep themselves safe as well. We're here again with Deb Baily, owner of Power Women Magazine, radio and TV shows. And Deb, can we just recap a little bit about what we talked about in the first half hour? And that is, no matter what has happened, no matter where you've come from, you have something to contribute. And we are here today to try to help motivate and empower you to do so, correct?
Absolutely. You hit the nail on the head there, lady.
So, and then we do want to talk some more about keeping seniors safe. So let's talk about, let's first start with that. This show is called Better Living, and it's geared towards seniors and their loved ones to inform them about all aspects of senior living. And an important topic is senior domestic abuse. Folks in this population are vulnerable. They're vulnerable to be taken advantage of in terms of their finances. They're vulnerable to be mistreated in terms of physical abuse, mental abuse, emotional, and neglect. And so how do we help our seniors and empower them if they're in this kind of situation? Like you said earlier, they don't know that there's a lot of resources out there for them. So let's start by talking straight to our seniors, then we're going to talk to their family members.
You know, I think if I was a senior in that capacity, the first thing I would do would be to get a support group, and I would start with my own family. You know, I would make sure that I had mapped out in a notebook somewhere for easy access in case I had a moment where I couldn't remember my own name, which happens to all of us. But I would have a notebook of all the family members and all their phone numbers and cell phone numbers. I would make sure that I had everything listed in my area as doctor's numbers, what kind of prescriptions I'm on, and nowadays, unfortunately, there's quite a few senior citizens that are on too much medicine, if you ask me. And there's also, I would put in that notebook, emergency contact numbers. I would also invite to put down there the area agency, well, I'm going to say that wrong, aren't I? Agency on Aging.
Yes, Area Agency on Aging, or the local senior center.
Yes, because those are great resources to have. Because not only can you go there and get help and mingle and you know, meet new senior citizens and get out of the house. A lot of people, and my mother did this when my father passed away. For some reason, she thought she had to stay in all the time. And I said, Mom, this is not good for you. You know, I know you miss Dad. I know you're a senior citizen, but it's still, you need to get out and enjoy the sunshine and make yourself feel better, because every person on this planet, no matter what age you are, has a purpose, and you're here for that purpose. And even though our loved one, our spouses even, that are no longer with us, and I know that takes, you know, a part of you away, and I totally understand that, you still have vibrance in your life. You still have energy that needs to be released to where you can go out and make a difference in someone else's life. And you really have a lot in common with somebody else, but the trick is to get out into the public and find that person, whether it be of the same sex or opposite sex, that you can share time with. And that doesn't mean that you have to go out on dates. I remember when my biological father passed away, excuse me, and my stepmom would call me and she said, I met somebody at church. And I said, I am so happy that you did. You can get out and enjoy life again. And, excuse me again, she just kept on, and I said, you know what? If you're asking for my permission to date someone, you have it. You don't sit and think that you're unworthy of having friends again, and don't think you're unworthy of not feeling love for another human being again, because that's so untrue.
Yeah, my mother.
A lot of people get that.
Yeah, my mother is 71. Actually, we have a little magazine as well, through Homestead Hope Foundation, and I just wrote an article about this. She's 71. My father passed away almost 6 years ago of lung cancer, and like your mother-in-law, I think you said it was your mother-in-law, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, she got a little bit lost. I mean, when you're with someone for 40-something years, you forget what you're supposed to do to live life when they're not with you anymore. So there was that period of grief, and there was that period of loss, and not knowing who to be, who you are. There's a reason you're still on this earth. God hasn't taken you yet, so there's something more for you to do here. So after about a year, we had a little heart-to-heart, and she started being more social and going out and going on bus trips with the seniors. And one day she came to visit me in Georgia, and we were talking, and she said, well, you know, this man came to drop some clothes he was donating off. He's a friend of my friend's, and he got a little lost, so she had him come to the house, and I think he might be interested in me. He asked me to go on a date. So we had more fun talking to my mother about getting back into the dating world at 69, 70 years old. And I'm happy to tell those folks out there right now that this past September, she got married and they moved to Georgia. So now my mother and Dennis are newlyweds in their 70s. And so there's a great story in that. And of course, I labeled it the power, being empowered and being in charge of your own life. Don't give up. You need to keep in there and keep finding a way to make you happy.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think no matter what age you are, I think that holds true. I think, too, that senior citizens, bless their hearts, they feel at a certain age that they're supposed to give up. And I think society has dawned that upon them. And that is a sad situation because we have so much to learn from senior citizens.
We do. I worked in hospice for years and years and years, and people, that's a very good conversation stopper when you're at a cocktail party and someone says, "What do you do?" And I tell them I work for hospice. Oh, and they turn their head and go talk to someone else. But what I have to say is there is nothing more satisfactory than being talked to by a veteran or someone that's lived a full life through the Depression and through the ups and downs of this country and gives you a history lesson and understands and has wisdom that we could never have because they've lived a longer life. They've experienced much more than we have. And what a blessing it is. You get so much more back from people who are older, more experienced, and wiser than we ever could be than folks realize.
Yes, I agree.
And I wish in this country we would do much more to help our seniors. I visited many assisted living facilities yesterday and through my day job, my work, and they're just lovely. And you walk in and they want to talk to you and they smile and they say good morning, and we're missing the boat. We could fulfill ourselves so much more if we gave back to our seniors who helped us build a country to help us come behind them. There's not enough of that going on in this. Anyway, I'll get off my soapbox, but keeping seniors safe and making sure that they're secure. We talked a little bit in the last half hour about the fact that, technicians, and this is not to say that all service technicians are bad. I know some wonderful service technicians that gear towards seniors to make them feel good, and they even actually lower their prices to help seniors because they understand what they're going through. But that is a vulnerability that you face. Before you invite anyone into your home, make sure you do your due diligence and find out what company they're from and are they insured and was a background check run on them, and get a family member involved and see if, like Deb said, have somebody at your house when they come over. I'm not a senior, but I'm a single mother. I don't like to have anybody come to my house if I'm not with somebody else.
Me too.
And so that's just, like you said, common sense. If it sounds too good to be true, it is. You haven't won anything, so don't give your credit card over the phone. Because you're vulnerable to be taken advantage of financially. What are some other things that we should be talking about here, Deb?
One of the biggest things that popped in my mind while you were talking was I had a senior citizen friend here a few years ago that for some reason on this God's green earth, she thought she won some money from some stranger through the email. And I know a lot of times that seniors don't really know a lot about the Internet, and some are even frightened of the Internet. And I say that if you're frightened of it, don't use it. If you're on it, be very cautious about it. Because my friend thought she won some money, and I sat her down and I said, why on earth would you think that some person you don't even know on the other side of this earth would give you a dime, let alone $1 million? And she said, because people get desperate. And people are always looking for ways to get out of the hole, if you will. And that's a sad situation when seniors have to make a decision between getting medicine or paying rent or buying food. And they get in that desperate mode, and somebody comes along and says, hey, you just won this amount of money. Well, that's the answer to all their problems. And little do you know that that's really the beginning of a lot of problems.
So be smart about it. Don't invite strangers in any capacity, via email, telephone, knock on the door. You have to also advocate for yourself. You have to get yourself educated. You have got to do your own due diligence, or you're inviting trouble. So just be extra cautious. Now, let's talk about domestic abuse, because you've been through an awful lot. So let's say one of our seniors was abused. What are some things to look for? How can we help our family members identify if something has happened? Because their seniors are going to be very frightened, and sometimes they can't even communicate.
Right, yeah, and that's the sad part. And those, unfortunately, are the people that are usually taken advantage of first or most often.
And targeted.
If you have a loved one, especially that's in a retirement village or a nursing home, please, please, please try and visit as much as possible, and make sure that you're aware of their surroundings. That's the number one thing. Make sure you get to know the staff. And that's so important, because when you're not there with them, the staff can fill you in on so much. But the things to look for are some of the obvious things: bruises, pressure marks, burns even, unfortunately. One of the biggest things that when Granny was in the hospital that we looked at was we used to make sure that we gave her a shower or a bed bath every time we were there. And not only were we freshening her up, but we were looking for things. Did she have bed sores? Did she have bruises around her breast or her genitalia? You know, these kinds of things are telltale signs of abuse, of physical abuse. You can also have emotional abuse. A lot of people, especially senior citizens that are put into homes, go through stages of this at first, and that part is normal because they feel that they are left out. They feel that they're abandoned, and these things are pretty normal, and they have people on staff to help your loved one get through that. But if they're getting to the point where they seem that they're not alert anymore, or maybe they're slipping in and out of reality, or they're even withdrawal from normal activities. Maybe you go and visit Aunt Mary on Tuesday, and she's playing bingo, and by Friday when you get there, she doesn't want to get out of the bed, and she feels kind of sick, and you kind of think, well, maybe she's got a touch of the flu, and kind of, brushes it off. And you go back the next Tuesday, and Aunt Mary's still in the bed. There's something wrong.
Yeah, and that withdrawing is a big sign and signal that something's gone on.
Yes, and you need to make sure that you bring that awareness and that to the director and to the floor and wing nurse. Usually they have wing directors and nurses, and make sure you bring that attention to someone. And I'm not saying that that it happens all the time, and it may be something else that's going on with Aunt Mary, but just know in the back of your head that you're not with your loved one 24/7, obviously, and things do occur. So I always tell people, too, that have loved ones in nursing homes to take a notebook with them. And in that notebook, write down the date that you visit and the time that you're there, and write down things that are in the room. How was Grandma doing that day? Was she up and perking and laughing and watching TV, or was she out getting her hair done? Because some nursing homes have hair, salons and stuff. Write down their activities, and especially if they stop doing that stuff, write down what you see and how you see maybe the nurse is treating them. Maybe it's a nurse that's having a problem and bringing it to work. Sometimes that happens. But always make sure that you write down everything that you see, so that when you go to the director or you go to whoever is in charge of your Granny or your Aunt Mary, that you have some kind of backup and concern and say, look, this is what I've been observing for the last week or 2 weeks or however long. And I don't think it's right because it's not in her character.
Right. And, so much of what you said has prompted some thoughts in my own brain, but I've worked in this industry for a very long time, and there are some wonderful, beautiful people that have been called to serve our seniors. And there's a lot of bad press out there about nursing homes and your loved ones and abuse and all, and you have got to be aware. But there's also some beautiful souls in each and every one of those facilities. And what you said, Deb, get to know the staff. You must build relationships with the folks that are caring for your loved ones. And if you develop a very close relationship with even just one person on that staff, they will advocate for your loved one as well. And they will keep an extra eye out for your loved one as well. And a lot of these folks are in it for the right reasons. Then you get a few bad apples, and then everybody's afraid of every facility and every person in a facility. That's not what we're saying. What we're saying is you must be aware. You must educate yourself. You must build relationships with the staff. And I love the idea of notebooks that you said. I love the idea of monitoring their activities, because that withdrawing is so important. We need to catch that early. We can't let folks give up and get into a routine of, I'm just sitting around waiting to die.
That's right. Yeah, because a lot of them feel worthless and useless. And I think no matter whether they're in a nursing home or not, my husband and I, we're pushing 50 hard, and he lost his job 2 years ago and just hasn't been able to find steady work. And he had a job interview the other day. And I told him, I said, you should feel so proud of yourself, so good inside. And he looked at me like, why would I do that for? Because somebody's paying attention to you. Somebody thinks that your skills that you have is worthy to come and work at their company.
Right.
And I said, whether you get the job or not, that's beyond the point. That would be like icing on the cake. But guess what? Somebody in 2 years has paid attention to you and said, you know what, Mr. Baily? You've got the skills we need. You've got something that I need that you can help me with. And I think when we pay attention to people, I think that has a lot to do with it, too, and it builds their self-esteem. And sometimes senior citizens, no matter where they live and who they live with, sometimes their self-esteem is just so withdrawn, and it's so sad.
It is. And, as you're talking, I'm just thinking of ways we can help build their self-esteem and give back to society. This is about women and empowering women, but it's really about empowering everybody. Everything you say can be applied to any gender, any person, any age. But as you're talking, I'm thinking, we have these folks that are out of work. Maybe they were in construction. Maybe we can connect with them, through hospice or home health, and we're visiting seniors in facilities and hold a 1-hour session where they bring materials in and help these folks in these facilities build things and then sell them out in the sky's the limit here. And if you're down and out and you're feeling like you're not being fulfilled and you're not contributing, maybe it's not a paying job, but maybe by doing something like that, it gets the word out, and then you're rewarded, and then something will come of it as well. So folks, if you're down and out and you're sitting at home and you don't have a lot that you're doing and you're not feeling really good about yourself, I empower you to empower yourself and get out there and help our seniors as well. They can educate you. I've had conversations with these folks. They can motivate you. They will give back so much more than if you put yourself out there for them.
Absolutely. And even in your own community, when my kids were little, there wasn't a holiday that I didn't cook, especially Thanksgiving and Christmas, where I made plates and took a big plate and a dessert plate. And both my kids, I would call the neighbors and say, hey, the kids are coming down with your plate of food. And I would go take it down to Mr. James down the hill, or Miss Fran up on top of the hill. And they knew if they needed something and their loved ones wanting around, call. I've got 2 kids. They can come and take out trash, or they can come and bring in firewood for your fireplace. So everybody in this community knows me and my kids.
And what a lesson to the kids that you're giving. And that brings me back a bit to keeping seniors safe. We talked about safety, we talked about abuse, but a lot of times they're neglected. And really, it may not be as a fault of their loved ones. Life is hard. People have to go to work. People can't afford caregivers. Sometimes you're forced to make decisions you really don't want to make, and you have to leave a loved one at home that would be better off with someone else. However, we can help as a community as well. I had posted something on Facebook the other day, and my friend had said his daughter's school takes meals to seniors at one facility. I think it's once a month or once a quarter, and what his daughter gets back, or through her church, what his daughter gets back from doing that as well, and what he's teaching his daughter by going there, and all that the wisdom that the seniors will give her as well. So, as we're talking, and I'm thinking seniors need safety, seniors have a right to shelter, seniors have a right to food and proper clothing. There's so much that we can do to help as well. And there's a lot of families that are trying to do the best they can, and they just can't possibly do what their loved ones need of them. And so things that we can do. Bring socks, bring sweats, bring hats and gloves. Go to senior centers and see if there's people that are shut in that aren't visiting those senior centers, and see if you can help in any way, shape, or form. You know, like we said, build birdhouses with them, or help them garden, just to get them outside in the garden at the facility, even if they're not doing a lot because physically they're limited. You're motivating them and you're getting outside in the sun. Deb, thank you so much for joining us. You wrote some things on my questionnaire, top 5 things you need the public to know. And I love what you wrote about women. Do you want to recap that, or should I read that?
You better read that, because my mind is blank.
Women are power. And you know, I in my next life, I would like to be a mentor to young females who are going through struggles. But as I read this, everybody can pay attention to this, whether you're a woman or a man. Women are power. Women have a voice and have a platform to express it. Women can come together and learn from each other. Women share far more than they realize. And we are women, hear us roar. I love that. You know, there has been some suppression with our female counterparts throughout many years. I'm so grateful for the females that came before me to open the doors and burst through the ceilings that they burst through so that I could be successful. And we still have a long way to go. But in my heart and in my passion, it's not even just about empowering women. It's about empowering absolutely everybody to be the best person they can be, to give back to society. And don't forget about the people that came before us. They're older, they're more frail, and they're vulnerable. But let me tell you, after being in this industry for 15 years, they have so much to teach us, and we are much better off if we just pay a little bit of attention.
Right.
So, Deb, is there anything else? I wanted to just shout out again, Deb is here with Power Women Magazine, www.powerwomenmag.com. And Deb, you have radio shows and TV shows. Do you want to give a little bit of information about when your show airs so people can get to know you a little better?
Well, sure. My radio shows, you can listen to them live on my website there, the powerwomenmag.com, and I have shows Monday through Fridays. And my TV show will start airing in March on Dish Network on Channel 3, and they haven't given me a per set day or time or anything yet, but I'm so excited that Dish picked that up. And I know, I can't believe it. And if you would like to be, if you're a woman and you have an issue or topic that you want to discuss and you want to come on either of my shows, visit my website, and there's a form to fill out. It's under Be a Guest, and we'd love to have you.
Thank you so much. I loved having you today, Deb.
Well, thank you for inviting me. I appreciate you.
I'm Jeannie Pete. Thanks for listening. Have a blessed day and week ahead, and listen here, same time next week and every week. Homestead Hope Foundation is your resource for a healthy life. God bless.